Now, if you follow StarCraft 2 closely, you would imagine that these players play against each other all of the time. It turns out this is the first time that two of the very best players in StarCraft 2 have faced off against each other in nearly half a year. Spotting right here in the top right-hand corner, playing with the blue Zerg pieces, we have none other than Reynor. His opponent in this best of 5 series with the red Protoss probes, he goes by the name of MaxPax. If you would have asked me if I had to guess how long it had been since these two played against each other, 6 months seems like a long time, but it is what it all comes down to. Now, this particular series is the finals of a Wardy TV hosted tournament. I believe it is for the lion's share of $1,200, which is pretty sick. So I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two legends. Of course, they're both incredibly good. And since MaxPax is playing, it means that all of these games are indeed played online. Most of the games I've been casting as of late, they are from offline StarCraft 2 tournaments, meaning that the players are actually there in person. We've had a load of those over the last month or two, and, well, I've been trying to bring you the absolute highest level StarCraft and the most entertaining StarCraft games. And MaxPax, sadly for us, does not travel to offline tournaments. So I haven't really been checking out his games all too much. That being said, MaxPax, last time I've seen him play, really impressed me. I have, over the years, really turned into a MaxPax fanboy. This guy navigates crisis situations with Protoss better than any Protoss out there. He used to be extremely good at playing the macro game. Like, that's how he... Well, if we take a couple years back, he used to be very good at cheesing. So his cheesy build orders is what made him very popular in StarCraft 2 maybe 3-4 years ago or so. And then he started working on his macro game. And now I've noticed he's like slowly starting to incorporate some of that craziness back into the very standard strategies, which I really appreciate because, I mean, I feel like that's how you become like the complete package as a StarCraft 2 player, you know? You can't just be a macro player. You can't just be, at least not in 2025, you can't just be a cheeser. You have to be able to play a little bit of everything. The level of gameplay these days is incredible, and back in the day, maybe if you're like, for example, thinking of like the innovation days, you could get away with just playing macro all of the freaking time, but in modern StarCraft 2, I don't think that's optimal. Now, it looks like we've got ourselves a Stargate opener to start things off. No surprise there. MaxPax, by the way, definitely somebody who prefers playing normal. Like, he likes playing the normal macro game, as in, like, just slowly build up the eco. But if the opponent messes with him, he's very good at, well, transitioning away from it. And it's very much so up to the Zerg players these days in the current meta of this matchup to try and mess with the Protoss in one way or another. Not a lot of Zerg players enjoy playing the late game against Protoss right now, especially not against somebody of MaxPax's caliber. I don't even remember the last time I've seen MaxPax lose a late game. So I don't think that's what we're gonna see. But most of the time in the early game, Zerg doesn't have that many options. So I'm expecting most of the strategic variety to come out in the middle stages of the game when the Zerg player goes up to like 3 base saturation and they finish up their lair. That's usually when Zergs can go for like Roach Warren pushes or Knightish shenanigans or Queen drops or Swarm Host or Mutalisks. At that point, the sky is the limit. At this point though, at this phase in the game, Zerg is usually quite predictable. Third Nexus is gonna go up nice and early here. This is looking like about a 345, maybe 350 or so. Third Nexus. Adepts together with an Oracle right now, still harassing. There's no Spore Crawler over at the third, but there are a bunch of Lings and 2 Queens. Should be good enough. You know what? As the third gets planted down, a few Zerglings are being a nuisance, and that is, of course, Reynor's signature move. Always extremely annoying with Zerglings. Adepts, in the meantime, now get surrounded, though, because of it, and there's a little tiny hit squad of Zerglings. It is not going to really kill the Nexus, but it is certainly distracting the Protoss player enough to show us that MaxPax is not an artificial intelligence. He's a person? Pro gamers are human? That's crazy. Honestly, a little bit of an uncharacteristic mistake right there, because it is some basic multitasking, but even though those Zerglings directly didn't really deal that much damage themselves, they sufficiently distracted the Protoss there for a little bit. Okay. So far, though, certainly not a terrible start here for Protoss, but I do generally like this a little bit better for the Zerg. Reynor made the absolute minimum amount of defenses. He was late on the Spore Crawler over here on purpose. He only made a handful of Zerglings, and he got all the value out of them. Twilight Council together with a Forge on the back of this here for MaxPax, who will probably go into Blink. Yeah. We've been seeing some Protoss players go into Charge and Glaive the Depths again as well. Even some Dark Templar shenanigans, especially from Mana, which I really like. Some of those good old drops are always nice to see, but not what we're going to have in this particular game. So this is the gold standard. Getting the Blink together with the +1 is what we see in the majority of the games, and Reynor has decided to roll the die, and apparently it landed on +1 melee rather than +1 missile. I like +1 melee a lot against Blink openers, but at this point as a Zerg player, you can't really figure out whether or not it's going to be Blink or any of those other alternatives, and in the alternative scenarios, you would rather have the +1 missile instead. You can't figure that out though. I mean, he's seen a few Stalkers. Maybe that's all the info he really needs. You have to make a calculated guess. Either way, MaxPax going in again for his latest and greatest improvement in this matchup, and I really expect we're going to see this from basically every player over the next few months. So far, it seems to be only MaxPax, but he pushes with a bit of an anti-timing. So he seems to be attacking consistently now, about maybe 45 seconds or so before Blink finishes up, to do a little bit of creep clearing, sure, but also to kill a bunch of the Zerg's economy effectively, because as soon as Zerg sees these units getting onto creep, and at the very least marching around close to the perimeter of the creep, that is when Zergs will start making units. And Reynor only sitting at 60 workers compared to the conventional, well, usually we have like 65 or so. It does mean, though, that you're a little bit vulnerable as the Protoss player, as some of the units kind of get stuck in the corner. For now, though, good control here by Max, who also doesn't really lose a lot at home. He decided to go for a photon cannon now just to really seal the deal. A lot of the Zerglings now in stasis. Oracle's still alive, absolutely critical, but Reynor is already moving up towards the next step in the Zerg master plan. We're going Hydras into Lurkers together with a Hive. Storm coming up as well for Max, who's going into Charge now. Yeah, and I do like this beginning of the game overall here, a little bit better for Reynor. I mean, this is about the best start you can hope for at this level of StarCraft, I think. I mean, obviously, killing a Nexus would be huge, killing a mineral line would be massive, but you can't really reliably get that. As far as, like, calculated games go, I feel like this is the good, reliable start that Zerg players can aim for. Oh, getting one of these Oracles here is good. Yep. Gets one of them. Queen's waiting behind that little ramp here, trying to surprise the Protoss, and mission accomplished in that department. So it means that Reynor gets a free pass straight towards the Hive. Lurkers already coming up. These are Lair Tech Lurkers right now. Generally, you don't really play Lurkers until the upgrades are done. Reynor, though, getting some of them going already. And you know what? I think he's going to be able to get a cancel on this 4th Nexus, too. Yep, Reynor is cruising. Fantastic start right here for the young Italian. I mean, can we still call him the young Italian? We called him the young Italian when he first started getting really good at the game when he was like 17, but it's been it's been a little while at this point. We need a new username. That's what we need. Some people have been calling him the Italian Stallion. I don't know how I feel about that one. Either way, Reynor is looking powerful once more after taking a bit of a break, right? So he took a break from StarCraft 2 at the beginning of the year. He was playing a lot of League of Legends. I don't really follow the League scene, but apparently some of the League of Legends pro gamers were quite impressed with the way that he was improving in that game. But then they announced, well, basically all of the StarCraft 2 tournaments that we've had over the last few months, and EWC as well. And Reynor decided, you know what? Maybe I'll play some League, but let me pick StarCraft 2 back up again and play that game full-time again for a while. See how it goes. And initially, it didn't quite look as powerful, but nowadays, once more, I'm impressed. Here we go, though. MaxPax decides to move straight into the creep. I find this very risky. Zergling's trying to get a wraparound as well to get those High Templar. High Templar forced to use all of their storms defensively. That Stasis Ward may just barely be MaxPax's saving grace, but a lot of damage is still done right here to the Protoss. And so far, ever since those first 2 Adepts got surrounded, when MaxPax got distracted by 4 Zerglings on his 3rd Nexus, ever since that point, Reynor has been in full control of the game. And now he's going to begin the slow push. These lurkers already have their ranged upgrade. The burrow speed upgrade is just seconds away from finishing. Adrenal glands is a big power spike for Zerglings too. Reynor is smelling blood in the water right now, and he wants to see if he can leverage his way to a victory just like that. Beautiful game here by the Italian Zerg. Next up, we find ourselves on the map Ley Lines. Those first 4 minutes of the game are absolutely critical. I know I emphasize it a lot, but really if we look at like who's ahead by minute 4, maybe minute 5 or so, even if it's a very small advantage, it seems to be that at the absolute highest level, that is where victories come from. You have to be so crisp with your execution. It's actually one of those things. I've done a lot of StarCraft 2 coaching over the years, and even though I'm not really currently doing much of it at all, I've noticed most players really don't want to focus on like the first 5 minutes of the game. Like a lot of people are like, well, I kind of struggle in the mid game, or I struggle in the late game. Like, how do I deal with X, Y, and Z when the opponent does X, Y, and Z? How do I execute my strategy against it? Most of the time, all the problems you run into in a game of StarCraft can be traced back to like literally like the first 5 minutes of the game. If you play a very crisp first 5 minutes, everything else after that becomes way easier. And you'd be surprised, like if you compare a replay or a game of a pro gamer to your own match at like minute 5, even though there's been very little interaction between the units, you'd be surprised how much value pro gamers can squeeze out of their early game troops. Like worker-wise, the numbers can go up very rapidly. Expansion and tech-wise, I wouldn't be surprised if you're like pretty new to StarCraft 2 and you're just kind of playing your first 5 minutes. You're probably gonna be a full 5 minutes behind by minute 5. If you've been playing for a few months, I would not be surprised if you are literally playing at half optimized speed. Now, obviously, it is not entirely realistic to play as perfect the first 5 minutes as these guys can. But in theory, it's the type of stuff you can grind against like the very easy AI, right? You can do... I mean, you could do like 12 versions of the first 5 minutes against an easy AI. If you do that for a few hours, over the course of a week or two, you can get very sharp. And it really does make a huge difference. Like, that's the type of training you can do in StarCraft to certainly get better at the game. Just, yeah. Getting more optimized when it comes to all the macro cycles really, really does help. Anyway, it is all fun and games playing against the very easy AI, but the real problem starts when you have an opponent to deal with as well. To then continue executing those sorts of actions without the opponent interrupting you all too much. First Adept is out at this point in time. Stargate coming up here for MaxPax. I'm fully expecting a similar setup again, but here goes Reynor. Just being a little bit annoying. Just be a little bit annoying. Already, this means that that first Adept has to return back home. And it means that Protoss doesn't put any pressure on the Zerg right now. He's going to be able to defend this just fine. And obviously Zerg does lose 2 Zerglings for this. But in the meantime, there's only 2 Lings at home for defense. And Reynor has been just holding down the drone button. Third hatchery is going to finish up. Probably before the Adepts get ever across again. Yeah, we're just going to be using the Adept right now as a way to keep the third Nexus alive. So this is an even faster third Nexus. 3.5 minutes of in-game time. It means that Protoss basically has 1 less unit. Definitely no second gateway yet to complete the wall off. It's very greedy. You do have to be very cautious here as a Protoss player that you don't just get overwhelmed. Problem at this point is Protoss, if you decide to send that Oracle across the map, you might just lose your Nexus to like a small hit squad of Zerglings. Reynor would love to see that Oracle activate the Pulsar Beam. The Oracle attack is a little funky. Basically, it takes a little bit of energy to activate the firing beam. So if you just force it, it basically means that the Adept is not going to be able to deal as much damage on your side of the map. Okay. Now, one big advantage, though, to getting a Nexus at this point in time is that you really don't need to deal a lot of damage. If you look at the worker count right now, I mean, we're effectively even. Obviously, this is an advantage for Zerg, Mostly due to the fact that they have that larva mechanic, so they can pump out a lot of drones all at the same time. But, I mean, MaxPax still continuously chrono boosting his eco. He is still building up the work account quite quickly. And as soon as this Nexus kicks in, which is right about right now, he can use this as well as another work of, well, probes. He can just continuously now chrono boost out 3 workers at once. And even though he hasn't killed a single drone in this game, worker-wise, he is able to stay up to speed with the Zerg. So 3.5 minute third Nexus is incredibly powerful in that regard. Already a super quick Templar Archives. Lair right now at about 5 minutes, together with a Roach Warren, +1 melee again here for Reynor. All of this is very normal for the Zerg, who I wonder could have been, I think it could have been a little bit greedier. As soon as he saw the timing of the Nexus, I wonder if maybe it was possible to just be ever so slightly greedier here. Because you really don't need a lot of units. We're gonna go, Archon drops, okay. MaxPax cooking in an old new strategy. This is what Protoss players used to play quite frequently. I haven't seen it in a while, other than, well, I guess the Archon juggling that we saw from Mana, but Mana's strategy was quite a bit different than this. This is a super quick third Nexus in in combination here with this this Archon drop, which I really do like. Getting the cancel there on that hatchery is good. Was it a kill? Wait, what? Did I just completely hallucinate and not notice that it's a kill? I must have been looking at the... How is that a kill? There's no way that was a kill. Was that a kill? Hello, Reynor? Okay, no, it wasn't. Sometimes the animation here is a little bit funky, because that looks like it was a kill. Still, though, a bunch of resources down the drain for Reynor, and maybe most importantly, a bunch of time. I would not mind seeing an alternative fourth base on the right side, but... What's nice about Archons is that they are like 98% shields, right? So if you keep them alive, they will regen. They regen inside of the Warp Prism too. If you lose them inside of the Warp Prism, though, that would be an absolute disaster. But you can get a lot of value out of those troops. +1 Storm Charge. So this is the very first upgrade coming out of the Twilight Council. I actually really do like this build here for MaxPax. It's really nice. As long as you micro reasonably well against the Roaches, you can actually kind of engage them too, but Roaches have a lot of HP, so not really worth it. In the meantime, though, Reynor has decided that he wants to get a quick 2-0 lead in this particular series, as he's going Pneumatized Carapace together with 2 Dropper Lords. Reynor is just about to release the hammer. A March of the Ovies going across the map as well. Not bad. I do love seeing the March of the Overlords. Look at that. Well, it gets scouted right now by MaxPax. He knows that it's coming, but does he have enough stuff? He's currently about 40 supply behind the opponent, but he does have Immortals, and he does have Archons, and most importantly, he does have Storm. Reynor's bringing the Overlords as way of a creep, like a creep highway here in the middle of the engagement. It helps out a lot against Roaches and Ravagers. Queens got dropped behind this as well. Keep in mind that Queens need to be on creep in order to actually use their transfusion. And so far, MaxPax is navigating this brilliantly. 2 Immortals, by the way, getting chronoed at the same time too. That Stasis Ward really slowing down the advancement in this particular fight a ton. In the meantime, ooh, Zealots send across the map. You know what? Maybe we can call this MaxPax's signature move. I've seen so many games, like in 2025 so far, where MaxPax is just about to lose a big fight, and then somehow, some way, he has like 4 or 5 Zealots on the other side of the map dealing damage. It's very reminiscent of the way that Reynor plays, where you're wondering, should you really not, like, have those ZERGLINGs inside of your main army instead? Perfect defense right there by Max. What did he even lose? Okay, he lost 2 Archons and a couple Zealots, but that's about it. Actually, an insane fight right there for MaxPax. 4th Nexus right now on the back of this. That Stasis Ward honestly sealed the deal. I thought Reynor was going to double down, but Reynor was like, I am not going to risk it. Tunneling Claws coming up right now for the Zerg player together with Burrow. Burrow +1, we get all of the things here, which is nice, but I'm a little bit concerned at this point. for... I mean, here's the thing. Protoss can play late game right now, if they want to. MaxPax can put down a fleet beacon and go into Skytos. Now, even though he's an absolute monster when it comes to late game macro, and even though he's an absolute monster when it comes to, well, just playing Protoss really, really good, he doesn't need to. He could just stick around on this Mass Immortal Archon Storm style and go for a timing attack this way. And I think that's probably the plan. He's currently got 10 Immortals, 1 Archon, 8 High Templar. There's still Zealots on the other side of the map too. A lot of Protoss players right now feel like they can win if they can get the game to go to distance. MaxPax, however, he can win when the game goes to distance, sure, but he's not afraid to go for a different strategy than that. And honestly, this Protoss army is scary, dude. This Protoss army has so much sustain and so much damage. It absolutely sucks against, for example, Brute Lords. But we are not at Brute Lord tech. You have to sort of get value out of this army too before the ultimate late game. MaxPax is ready to just send in the guns. And this is a Zerg army that's going to melt. In a straight-up engagement, yeah, Reynor basically needs to hope that he gets some lucky corrosive balls. If those Immortals turn their guns onto the hedge, it dies within a second. In the meantime, there's Zealots on the right side, there's Zealots up north. MaxPax sending in everything that he's got. Ooh, this build order from MaxPax is actually really cool. The super quick third Nexus off of a single gateway and then only 2 units, 1 Adept and 1... Stalker, and then obviously he did make a transition as well into, as we do have some tunneling clawed roaches, he did make a transition as well towards like a single Oracle there to keep the third base alive, but then straight into Archon drops and double Robo. That looked dangerous. We've become very accustomed to seeing Protoss players play Skytos. To the point where like that late mid-game army, I guess is what we can call it, is almost a little unexplored in 2025. We're very used to Protoss players playing, well, I'm gonna go Blink, and I'm gonna get the +1, and then I'm gonna slowly trickle into a 4th Nexus, and then I put down a Fleet Beacon, and then we played this turtley style for like the next 5 minutes. That entire like 5-minute window there is something where Protoss certainly has more options. And Protoss, well, MaxPax in this instance, he has found something that might just be really good to fill that void. And I like seeing it. It's this weird Mass Immortal style, apparently. It also is a great example as to why we don't really see a lot of those Roach Queen pushes anymore. I mean, MaxPax didn't even stutter there. Like, he didn't feel like he was actually struggling at all. So what do we do now? Incorporeal it is. I would love to see Max play the exact same build order again. So if I'm not mistaken, it was a 20 supply Cybercore into a 20 supply Nexus. Then he went for Pylon in the main base, obviously. We went for Stargate in the main base too. Adept into Stalker out of the Gateway. Oracle out of the Stargate. And that's really about it. Then just straight into a 3rd Nexus at 3.5 minutes. It's very quick. The Archon damage, basically with the Archons, you can't really guarantee eco damage. It's not likely at the very least that you're gonna kill like a drone or a bunch of units, but you can always kill something. Because at that point in the game, like the only really good answer that Zerg has against Archons at that phase in the game would be a bunch of Roaches. But Zerg players hold off of making Roaches until they absolutely need them. You don't usually make like 6, 7, 8 Roaches just for free, because that would cut into your worker production. So Archon drops, yeah. Very fun to see. Very powerful for sure. And even though it might not be like the S-tier strategy, it still seems pretty darn good to me. Very quick Storm as well, by the way. I feel like the Storm needs to be emphasized. Protoss players have been very fond lately, especially in Protoss versus Terran, but now also in Protoss versus Zerg, to go into the quick Storm research. I think if you're a Zerg player, you're effectively going that Roach Ravager Queen drop push pretty much blind. Like, you're going into that push and you just kind of cross your fingers and hope Protoss doesn't have Storm. I mean, if Storm is done at that point, it's going to be really tough to achieve much. Anyways, now it's going to be Adept into Adept here. Not Adept into Stalker. Stargate is going to finish up here in just a moment. Couple of Zerglings run in. Ooh, alright. MaxPax mixing it up again. This is what MaxPax does, by the way. Like, if you look at MaxPax's games, you kind of just follow along roughly. You're like, oh, Protoss players play the same thing every single time. MaxPax never plays the same thing twice in a series. It's all these very small adjustments. So none of this, like, this may just very well lead to a very similar army again. But the ways he gets there are all a little bit different, and it keeps the opponent guessing. He's hunting overlords. He's gonna make the beam thick as soon as he encounters one, dude. Ooh la la. Look, it's what Protoss players secretly like. Here we go. Make it thick. Whoa. Ah, there we go. Ah, you played hard to get there for a little bit. Fair enough. Fair enough. He's like, I don't care. I do care. I do care. All right. Start Nexus once more, nice and early. Oracle is gonna chase home that little Zergling, desperately running for its life. The little Zergling, though, is joined in by some of its brothers, and that might mean that the Oracle actually has to return back home. I don't think MaxPax saw it. Might have to recall it, because this third Nexus is in some trouble if he lets it just get attacked. No, he decides to fly back home, fair enough. It's so much easier these days to keep these third Nexi alive if you... Oh my god, look at this guy. Absolute massive beam. Just sniping whatever's possible. Lovely little bit of Void Ray micro. Gold League Protoss players watching this are like, huh? You can micro Void Rays? Huh? Yeah. Insane. 3 kills on this bad boy. Honestly, really, really nice. Make it 4. So Void Ray's prismatic alignment. Okay, this is the biggest noob trap in StarCraft 2, okay? If you want to be cool, learn the different armor types in StarCraft 2. Prismatic alignment, the ability that makes the beam thick, deals bonus damage against armored units only. The biggest noob trap you can see from players in StarCraft 2 is activating the thick beam against everything. Now, the beam does 2 things. First off, well, it does 3 things. First off, it makes the beam thick, right? Secondly, it makes you deal bonus damage against armored units, but only armored. And then third, it slows down the unit's movement speed massively. So if you use prismatic alignment against units that are not armored, you don't get any value out of it. All you get is a debuff on your own units and a long cooldown. Oh, it's good against structures though. Look at this Void Ray. Yo, that Void Ray is so nice. That Void Ray has put in a lot of value. Now there is something to be said for the intimidation factor of the thick beam. At least that's what she said. Okay, Spire gonna come up here for Reynor. So Reynor hasn't really lost a lot of economy. But he did lose a couple of overlords and some of his vision out on the map. Here we go, Archon drops again. Archon drops against Spire. Now, last time I saw MaxPax play against the Spire, it was in a game that he played against Scarlet. And MaxPax managed that Spire so perfectly that it looked like one of the dumbest builds Zerg players could go for. Like, the crisis management in that particular match was pretty much flawless. Look at the Void Ray. Void Ray's still going in, man. Roaches, structures, they are certainly armored. Did he see the Spire as well just now? Yep, he did. He's gone for Storm, and he still goes for Immortal Production too. There are a bunch of probes going down, though, to the Zerglings, and that is nicely done here by Reynor. But he did lose a 4th base in the process, and he did get scouted with the Spire here, too. One Zealot accepting death in the corner right there of the main base. Look at this Void Ray, dude. I have never seen a Void Ray micro like this before. It's kind of funny. Even at the absolute highest level, usually the most we see from a Void Ray, it's quite a common opener, is 2 Overlords. Like 2 Overlords and a Zergling or 2. That's kind of like the... This guy has 11 kills. I think 3 of them are Overlords. A bunch of them are Zerglings. But I mean, we had a Spore Crawler Council a bunch of time in the main base too. Those technically weren't kills. We've had the structures over here. A Roach. We had a Hatchery in the far bottom left too, together with the Zealots. This has been a very effective Void Ray. Okay. Archon drop still continuing too. Picks up the Archon at the latest possible moment. Oof. I'm starting to get nerd chills here watching MaxPax play. It's so freaking good. Those 15 probes going down sucks for him though. And it might just be a problem as soon as those Mutas hit the battlefield. So Reynor is almost played like, hey, do you know I have Mutas? I don't think you know I have Mutas, so I'm like not gonna show you them, but I think you've seen them. Like, this is starting to turn into one of those cross your fingers and hope for the best type of strats. Mutas are very flimsy, but also quite expensive, so you have to be careful with them. MaxPax, by the way, approaches Mutas differently than the other Protoss players out there, it seems. So he decides to fight fire with fire, and rather than sit behind his walls and just defend against the Mutas, he generally sends the rest of his army across the map, which is extremely risky, but it has a lot of potential. I don't know if these Mutas have been seen, though. There is a Spore Crawler. There is a Photon Cannon together with a Shield Battery, but these can still deal a lot of damage. MaxPax, though, is not going to go home. He decides to send Zealots towards the bottom left-hand corner again. Mutas are working away at the probes, but a few reinforcing Stalkers are doing just fine. And this is exactly what Max likes to do. Counterattack when the Mutas are in your base. I mean, you're gonna pay the price for it, but eventually I guess the Mutas will get cleaned up to reinforcing units. The question is, does Zerg have enough to deal with the main army of the Protoss? MaxPax is pushing deep onto Creep, though. He needs to be careful. He's away right now from his Warp Prism, and these Zealots are also kind of an idol. There is one Phoenix now going around. Both players trying to micro multiple engagements at the same time. Miscontrol right there on the Oracle as it flew through the Spore Crawler, and it looks like MaxPax has decided he doesn't want to push up the ramp. Or maybe he does. He's taken a lot of damage now, and in a weird way, this has forced him into an all-in. 45 workers only remain. If Reynor can push this army off of the creep, he is going to be able to cruise ahead in this game. 4th base or no 4th base. 72 workers is just hard to contest with only 46 probes. Then again, MaxPax does have a 4th Nexus of his own now. He can remake the workers quite rapidly. He's slowly working on the static defense, slowly creeping his way up towards the high ground. A couple additional Zealots get warped in, and here's the rest of that Protoss army now joining in the fray with the Mutalisks finally dealt with. There are some Banelings in the meantime morphed in as well, though. Reynor's gonna try and see if he can force this all-in to be even more all-in. If he can get the mineral line blown up, that would be 100% the final attack of the Protoss. Mutas going in around the side, Banelings going in around the back as well. He does see that. Moves the probes away. Still, I am a little bit concerned for this main army of the Protoss. I don't think Reynor is going to have the units at this rate to really deal with it. 6 probes have gone down. They will go back to mining. The Mutas also continue just hitting away at whatever they can. What about these storms? And what about this army? HG. That's not something we generally see. It gets cold as Reynor cannot stop the Protoss forces. Next up, we find ourselves on the map Tokamak. Great game of StarCraft right there. I mean, that was on a razor's edge. Really could have gone either way, but Reynor just barely not enough. He just barely didn't have enough there to, really deal with the main army of the Protoss player. It's one of those weird spots, right? We see this time and time again in StarCraft 2, where player A says to player B, I'm gonna force you to go all in. And then player B says, okay, lol, you can't stop me. And then player A loses. It's a bit weird. You'd imagine you could go for that exact same attack then every single time without being behind first. Like, imagine you just go for that attack straight up. It would be even better. Obviously, forcing the opponent all in is also quite expensive. And that's what it all comes down to. Reynor throwing away a lot of resources there. with those Zerglings and with those Mutas and the Banelings and all that, trying to force the opponent all in, and then Reynor, yeah, just couldn't really stop the flood of Protoss. Keep in mind, though, that in that previous game, before those Mutas were out, MaxPax lost, I think if I recall correctly, 14 probes to a Zergling run-by. That is very preventable. Like, that particular run-by is very preventable. And considering he still won the game regardless of that, I'm not sure exactly what Reynor could do differently to make the game better for him there. I mean, he overcommitted to the harassment, I guess. But that's gonna make that particular game quite frustrating for him, I think. Because Reynor knew he killed a lot of workers earlier on. He didn't really lose that much stuff. I mean, he did lose a bunch of Overlords, obviously, and that hero Void Ray put in a ton of work, but for all intents and purposes, that game went reasonably well according to plan. Okay. I'm assuming we'll see a Cybercore into a good old Stargate again, right over here. This is where the Stargate is gonna go. Come on, MaxPax, make me look good. Come on, dude. Do it. Oh! Ah! I don't know if that's good enough. I was pretty close. No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. All right, fair enough. Stargate is gonna come up, though. Third hatchery will also be built over here for the Zerg player, who's gonna once more build up their early game economy. Okay. What do you do against MaxPax, dude? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what you do against somebody that plays like this. He's the real deal. But, sadly, no offline tournaments. So I guess we will never truly know. Either way, it's gonna be an Oracle first. Adept swoops in. By the way, to put it in contrast, right? Most of the money in StarCraft 2 is in offline tournaments. That's just the way it is. So traveling to an event, that is where you make most of your money. Now, MaxPax, playing $100 cups here, $200 cups there, has now apparently, since about, I think, 2021 maybe or so, he has accumulated $155,000 in tournament earnings. Reynor in that same time period is sitting at like, I think like 700? Something like 700,000 that is, in that same time frame. Maybe even more than that. Like, I could look up the exact numbers, but long story short, there's way more money to be earned in offline tournaments than there is in online events. MaxPax has qualified for many offline tournaments, and then he decides, nope, I'm not doing it. Which is kind of also, like, you know, it's kind of a Chad move, right? The fact that he's like, no, I don't care. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the love of the game. At least that's what I picture. But MaxPax really working hard for, yeah, the money that he is accumulating. $100 here, $50 there. Yeah, so in all the years of StarCraft 2, MaxPax has never been at an offline tournament. It's kind of mysterious, because he's never mentioned as to why. People have made up 17 different reasons as to why it is, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. Not anymore. Well, what we do have over here is MaxPax aiming for a quick win. This is a 9-gate charge slot all-in. This is one of those builds that takes very little effort. Basically, what you do as Protoss is you warp in Zealots, you send them in on a tech move, and you let Tassadar take the wheel. And I kind of love that MaxPax is mixing this in. We just saw some phenomenal micro, some excellent game sense, and now we're gonna go for like the build order you could probably teach your mom. And she could do decently well within about a day. Well, this is really quite bad, though, for the Protoss. But then again, you don't really... Well, last time Tassadar took the wheel, he crashed the Ganther Thor. So I don't know. Maybe taking... Okay, bad analogy. At least the Overmind is no more. So we got that going for us. Anyways, 10 probes going down there is really quite bad for the Protoss player. But where we are going, we don't need probes. Well, 42 will do the trick. MaxPax is gonna warp in the boys. And we're gonna just warp in as many of the boys as possible. More minerals would have been good though, because he's got 9 gateways. And here we go. They have +1 melee. +1 melee makes it so that Zealots 2-shot Zerglings rather than 3-shot, which is a massive power spike in this particular instance at this phase in the game. This build has once more started gaining traction, which is pretty insane. Okay, Reynor. He needs to scramble a defense right now. He wanted to set up a wall, did not quite complete it, but still, Brenda over here is taking up very little surface area despite her size. Drones pulled away from their mineral line too. Don't tell me this is going to work. I mean, it's so much damage being dealt, but you know what? Reynor still is gonna have the worker lead, I think, as the dust settles. At least until this additional group of units just came in. Yeah, so as far as Protoss micro goes, it's really only the Oracle. You don't really do anything else. Zerg needs to do a lot in order to, like, micro their troops and take as little damage as possible. Man, imagine if he did this attack without losing the probes over at the 3rd base first. Actually kind of insane, because I've got a feeling half of these gateways are on cooldown right now. And the other half could be used to warp in units. Okay. So, income advantage, where do we end up? Well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Obviously, those workers there for Reynor weren't mining. But I think this is still playable for the Protoss, and likewise, it looks to me like it's still playable as well for the Zerg. He's gonna double down, though. I think we're gonna go Templar Archives to make this a Archon Zealot push. +2 melee also coming up. He doesn't really have the gas to go into Storm. So I don't think that's the plan. I think he's basically just getting this Templar Archive so he can warp in High Templar and can then turn them into a bunch of Archons. No, we are going to go Storm. Okay. We are going to go Storm and he's going double gas in the 3rd. Fair enough. Now, this is not the type of style we normally see from MaxPax, right? I mean, it's a bit of a weird one. This kind of feels like the hurry up, dinner is ready type of attack that you go for. And then you realize, wait a second, my opponent is a top level Zerg. Life's a little bit tricky. Reynor decides to go for +2 melee, together with +1 missile, together with roach speed, and then soon what will probably be Baneling speed too. So Reynor believes he's at a significant advantage right now and that he can drive home the win by going into a Roach Ravager Ling Bane all-in. Or at the very least a dedicated push. This is a strategy that lost a lot of popularity over the last 5 years or so. Maybe less than that. Maybe like the last 3 years. It used to be super popular until they nerfed the Baneling. So this upgrade back in the day, centrifugal hooks, would provide +5 HP to Banelings. And they took that away from the unit. Which I still think is one of the changes that should be reverted in hindsight. I still don't really like it, because it's made this unit composition that Reynor is going for way worse. Like Storm in particular, with how powerful it is these days. Looks like there was a little bit of a pause in the game. I'm lagging. Yes, me too. Let's try. Okay. Goog. I'm assuming it meant go-go. This is the type of build, though, that's just not as popular anymore these days because it's such a committed push. So, Storm deals 80 damage in its total duration. Banelings have 30 HP. It's not a lot. Well, is Storm ready to go? It sure is. 6 High Templar with loads of energy. There's about 10 Storms in his army. I don't think you can play Banelings against it. I mean, unless Protoss goes AFK and they don't pay attention and accidentally the Banelings roll in. Or maybe they have a lag spike and... But relying on your opponent being bad at the game is always a bad strategy. I will stand by that. I think in general in StarCraft 2, when you rely on your opponent making a critical error, your strategy sucks. Let's see. Yeah, Reynor is basically max now. So he's at 200 supply. He's making all of the Banelings in the world. This is only one pack of it. There's a bunch more here on the right side too. Fleet Beacon, first one of the series, starts up here for Max. Max's plan is to try and defend this incoming attack and then go into a Skytles or maybe a Mothership transition. It comes down to the Storms. It's about a 60 supply advantage here, though, for Reynor, which is absolutely massive, but it's an old school unit composition that we don't really see much anymore for a reason. I mean, this is the perfect setup for it, though, because he defended that push earlier on in the game. He dealt damage to the third base of the Protoss player. Surely this is the type of attack that works out. He decides to go Ultra Cavern. Now that I don't really like. Looks like he's giving up. No, he's just giving up. He doesn't actually want to play this out this way. I think he saw Storm and he's like, well, it's been fun. Stargates, additional ones, building inside of the main base. Fleet Beacon is out, and there's the Mothership. I love the Mothership here. Mothership is amazing. What does Zerg do against the Mothership at this point? Not much. You're gonna force out a Spire, but if you force out a Spire, it's gonna take like 2 minutes before those Corruptors are operational, and that means that MaxPax can slowly start working his way towards a 4th base, or towards a 5th base, rather. He can, like, build the static defense up and really turtle his way up there. And he can go into the Skytles transition in the meantime. This is that point in the game that Zerg players are super frustrated by, because they're far ahead. They feel like they can do anything they like, and then they do anything they like, and Protoss still gets up to Skytles, and it gets very messy. This is the exact frustration that a lot of Zerg players are experiencing in this meta right now, where they're desperately trying to avoid this. They're perfectly set up to avoid it, but then they're still kind of unable to avoid it. Well, Reynor sees the army here, or at least the Nexus. He knows that the army is not going to be too far behind. Couple of Zealots here, mostly just trying to be a nuisance. Ultras are getting their armor upgrade here. +3 melee, +2 armor. But carriers are already coming. Don't get me wrong, I mean... Ooh, 7 Dropper-Lords. Ultras can still work. It's just that Immortals, there's 7 Immortals. I hope for Reynor's sake that he realizes there's so many of them, because these Immortals are just gonna plow through the Ultras. Couple of Corrosive Balls here and going across this little mineral line. Maybe you knock down your own rocks just to make it more difficult for the Ravagers to reach it. Destroy your own mineral fields. I mean, the Nexus is kind of low. Still though, the Mothership is out, right? He doesn't really want to show it. Look at this. There's a tertiary army of the Protoss waiting inside of the main base. We have a big drop ready to go into the main, it looks like, too. But as long as Protoss is positioned well, this is not a drop that should do that really should do any damage. +2 air coming up here as well. MaxPax is basically saying, yo, I fell behind early on. I wanted this game to be over by now. Instead, I will try and see if I can macro my way out of this spot. Decent Baneling connections, but I think it's still okay for Max. It means that he's got more time to actually try and, well, max out again with better units. Here's the Zergling drop now, and it does get scouted here by MaxPax. 7 Dropper Lords full of units that are pretty much maxed out. They do have Adrenal Glands. +3 melee is seconds away from being done, but they are going to be able to bite their way through all of this pretty rapidly. Again, though, upon seeing that big attack, here's what Max does. It's similar as to the Mutas, you know? We don't actually go back home and stabilize. Instead, we counterattack. Dangerous move here by MaxPax, because it means that you have to micro multiple angles at once, and if the opponent is sitting on creep, you're gonna have to fight him on it. But I mean, this is looking like an absolutely unbeatable Protoss army with the current units that the Zerg player has. There's no Spire available, there's no Hydras. How in the world do you deal with this? Some Storms go down, we get Time Warps, we get the Cloaking Field activated too. Sure, he can kill the ground units reasonably well. But how does he kill the flying units? We have a mass recall towards the Mothership too, to bring in some of the reinforcing units after they dealt with the Zergling drop in the main base. And MaxPax is absolutely bludgeoning his opponent out of this game. I haven't watched a lot of MaxPax games lately, but he is so freaking good. It is an absolute treat to watch. We rarely see Protoss played like this. And compared to like a year ago, MaxPax is a lot more aggressive, which I think is serving his playstyle really well. In like a sea of Protoss players that are liking to sit back right now and they're like trying to build up their Skytles army and they're playing the much more passive game, slowly creeping their way to a 5th, MaxPax is like, okay, you're attacking me, perfect opportunity for me to go and attack you. And you get into this huge, like this huge chaotic game where suddenly there's fights happening all over the map, and MaxPax consistently seems to navigate that spot better than everybody else out there.